welcome to this Conveyancing Matters chat when we are delighted to meet David Opie. Welcome to Conveyancing Matters with Lorraine and Stu. Join us for a chat about all things property.
So nice of you to invite me along. Thank you so much, Lorraine. And
Not
Stu.
at all, not at all. Lovely to see you. And how are you, Stu?
Yeah, I'm very good. Yeah, keeping well.
Good, good, good. Well, of course, you two know each other from the recent British Conveyancing Awards, which we'll talk about in a minute. But David, for the benefit of the people who are watching that don't know who they are, I'm sure they'll recognise your name, but maybe haven't sort of met you in person, so to speak. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and the success of today's media, one has to say.
Oh, it's very kind of you, Lorraine. Thank you. So, yeah, my name's David Opie. I'm the managing director, managing editor of Today's Media, which is the publisher of a series of online news publications, which are all focused very specifically on legal services. We also host a series of events, run networking groups as well. So we're a sort of a publishing house, if you like, rather grandly. It makes me sound like Hugh Grant, which is perfect for dinner parties.
You haven't got the floppy hair though, David, so I'm not sure. I don't know. And last time I saw you, you had a big beard.
I don't think there's any way on earth I will ever get away with being Hugh Grant, but I can give it a good go, can't I?
I think so. So, David, tell us specifically, as obviously this is Conveyancing Matters, so tell us a bit about today's Conveyancer specifically.
Well, today's Conveyancer, I think most people are sort of aware, it launched way back when, 2010, 2012, and it was always designed to provide news, insight, updates, best practice, that kind of thing to the conveyancing profession. Obviously launched by a chap called Chris Harris. Chris probably more recognized for having run and then sold Lawyer Checker subsequently. And I worked for Chris. I worked actually for Lawyer Checker for a period of time, joined in 2019. That business was sold in 2021. And throughout the sort of negotiations it became very obvious that the acquirer, Diane Durham, weren't going to be interested in taking on Today's Conveyancer or the other publications. And so an opportunity came up for me to acquire them. And as I've said to a few people, Chris asked me the question, would I be interested? And I sort of said, yeah, does a bear defecate in the woods? I mean, they're a fantastic publication, a wonderful, wonderful platform. They've got a great reputation. And I hope all I've done in the nearly 4 years since, would you believe, 2021 was the acquisition. What I hope I've done in the years since is that I've maintained that. We've added to it where we can, but ultimately I've always said I'm the custodian of Today's Conveyancer.
Oh, that's interesting. I mean, I have to say, I think the profile is significantly higher than it was a few years ago. Now, that might be just me sort of misremembering David, but would that be a sort of fair comment? I think the identity, I think the brand identity, I think what you're doing with it is pretty, is clearer than it was.
Look, it's very good of people to say, and people do say they sort of see it around a little bit more, which is lovely. We did the rebrand, which was an important piece of work. I think it brought the Today's Media brands together and created a much better identity around everything that we did. So, for example, we're the Secretariat for Women in Residential Property for a group called Women in Wills. They're two sort of quite sizable networking groups. We obviously run the British Wills and Probate Awards and the British Conveyancing Awards. Bringing that all sort of together into a single identity certainly created a much better story, if you like. But then, we have grown them. So Today's Conveyancer the readership is now probably 2/3 again the size it was when we did the acquisition. Really, really interestingly, and perhaps you've seen this through your own channels, our social profiles overtook our actual email subscriber database probably about 2 years ago, 18 months, 2 years ago. And that was quite a sort of a switch, really, that we saw, particularly in terms of how people consume and view news.
Yeah, well, certainly. Yeah, I suppose we never really went for an email database specifically, but Stu, I think it's fair to say, isn't it? We've always, you know, social media has always been a thing for us, and always been the way that we've been able to promote Conveyancing Matters.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, it's a changing world. And I suppose, David, since you took over, there's been so much news, hasn't there, in conveyancing? Maybe
It's
gone
certainly helped.
through periods of dullness, and all of a sudden, bang, COVID and stamp duty holidays and everything like that probably gave you that niche that you almost needed as well.
Yeah, massively. I mean, we're in a very interesting period in the property sector. I hardly need tell you guys, and obviously, I know you've had some really interesting guests on recently as well, including Mr. Harlow from HMLR, and that's all very, very interesting. What I find fascinating, and it was actually on the DPMSG podcast recently, where they're sort of tempering expectations around some of the speed of change simply because there have to be the protections in place to protect ultimately the assets that are held by agencies like HMLR. £8 trillion, I think he said on the podcast. So yeah, it's a fascinating time, and yeah, plenty to be getting our teeth into.
Plenty to be talking about. But of course, the British Conveyancing Awards is something, David, that now has become a real sort of feature in the property lawyers' calendar. And you're kind enough to ask me to be a judge, which is very, very sweet of you, and I'm very delighted to do that. But am I right in thinking, Dave, you started that sort of as basically an online boost during COVID? Is that when the first one of those came about, or am I getting that wrong?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely spot on. Yeah, so 2021, we're coming out of COVID. Conveyancers have done the most incredible job of getting the market moving again after it reopened, and transacting on all those transactions. I mean, what was it, 1.6 million, something like that? Absolutely crazy, wasn't it? Stu, you'll probably remember better than me.
Still got the scars now, yeah.
And we felt really strongly as a publication that we needed to recognise what we described as that Herculean effort, and that was the language that we used. We sort of we positioned it really as a way to recognise the sector's response to COVID. We introduced some sort of slightly left field categories. Mental health champion from memory was one of them, and it was really important that we recognised the role that conveyancers played during that period, and of course it's blossomed from there. So yeah, first year was purely online. We went down to Birmingham to record it in a secret video location, but the process was the same, and the process has stayed the same in the sense that submissions are entered. It goes to an independent judging panel, and it's very kind of you to mention the fact that you've been involved, Lorraine, because it is through people like yourself who are independent, who understand conveyancing as well. I said this year that you simply won't pull the wool over our judges' eyes. That's a really, really important part of the process. And ultimately what it means is that people who are successful through the course of the event can rightly hold it up and say, look, this is what my peers have said about me.
Yeah, I think so. And of
one of
course,
the things I really like about the awards as well is that it is just for conveyancing.
yeah.
Of course, we have the ESTA, so we have other awards out there where we're sort of diluted with estate agents and whatnot. But I feel this sort of really rewards the conveyancer standing alone.
Well, and Stu, light under a bushel and all that. And of course, PCS won an award, the British Conveyancing Awards this year. So come on, Stu, tell us about that. You've kept that under wraps a bit, mate. But
I assumed it would be in the background, to be honest with you, Stu.
Yeah.
Up on a pedestal.
It's in the boardroom, David. It's in a little trophy cabinet just on its own. But no, we won the Innovation Award, and for us, it's important two ways, I think. Number one, to show sort of the outside world the work that you do and the fact you've been, rewarded for it. But also internally, it's something that you give back to your staff. You drum into them, we're doing this, we're doing that, and to then turn around and say that they've been rewarded for their efforts. At a prestigious event like that, I think it's great.
So what did you innovate, Stu, for the benefit of the people watching?
It was our onboarding platform. So it's sort of an onboarding platform where Clients can go on there, self-generate quotes, but also it leads into a conveyancing sort of concierge service whereby they can get quotes for removals and whatever they need, locksmiths, anything to do with their sort of buying property process. It links in all different third-party services as well. So trying to make that journey as seamless as possible for the client.
A fantastic idea. And of course, I mean, I've obviously been chatting to you, Stu, as you've kind of worked on it and put it together over the last, well, probably 2 or 3 years, really, if not more. And of course, the point is, and this is why I think it's great that you've won an award, because it sort of recognises the fact that it's sort of, and it's such a cliche, but by a property lawyer for property lawyers, you've kind of literally started from the ground up and thought, well, I know. There's few people in the country, Stu, that will know better what law firms need than you know. And therefore, for you to actually come up with a product that is very much from the client perspective, but from the property lawyer's perspective, that's what I always found interesting about you doing it. And actually, David, it was always interesting watching Stu saying, "Oh no, God, we've seen somebody demo that product. Oh, it's awful. I can do better than that. I can do better than that." Because there is a lot of prop tech out there these days, David, isn't there?
I think it's really challenging because on the one hand you've got innovation and you've got experience and you've got people like Stu who are creating products because they understand the market. That's really important. But on the other side of the coin, what I've seen particularly come into the sector is different ideas, different people that aren't property people. And what you've got to get is that right blend of people who don't come with perhaps that straitjacketed view of what property should or could be, and don't carry the baggage of probably 20 years or so of lots and lots of different sort of technology ideas that have come into the sector. I mean, go back to chain view and VEO, whichever one it was, and people have scars from that, don't they? Because they sort of go, well, it didn't work, so why do we bother? So I think getting that right blend of people with experience who understand the market, but also people who don't come with some of that baggage is really, really important.
I think it's probably fair to say that the market's probably a bit fragmented with tech platforms and whatnot now. And I think as a law firm owner, you're presented with these platforms on a weekly basis. And Lorraine and I have said it quite a few times before. It's, sometimes trying to solve a problem that actually doesn't even exist. And we were very conscious, knowing absolutely nothing about tech, that, we wanted to solve something that we felt was a problem. And that was the angle we kind of came from, rather than trying to invent something new. It was more solving about a problem.
Well, actually, David, that sort of leads us into talking about, a subject that's close to your heart and I think is of interest to a lot of people. It's, sort of PR for property lawyers in a more general way, and PR in relation to your business. And I think where, frankly, a lot of these prop tech firms sort of get it wrong, actually, is their PR, because I do think, and I am I am an old dinosaur, absolutely 100%. But I do think if anybody comes into the market again with a product and says it's a game changer, for me, that is just the worst piece of PR that anybody can probably adopt. And as you say, David, they probably are the person that know nothing about the market, but have done very little to actually try and perhaps get guidance or support from people that do know about the market. So the importance of PR for firms generally, but law firms is crucial. So what's your take on that, David? What would you be for hard pressed law firms and hard pressed conveyancers? What can that mean for them?
I mean, look, there's a whole podcast in here, isn't there? Or
yes.
A whole video cast in here. So
a whole series, in fact.
Yeah, we're going to have to try and do this justice in a short space of time. I think, look, let's go back to the awards as a really great example. And Stu, you touched on it. Award success is not just about what the industry sees about you, although that's really important. Because obviously it helps with things like recruitment and retention. And as you say, Stu, it's a really valuable tool for internal comms as well. But externally, award success is really, really important because it is a differentiator. We're in a sector where, by and large, we're all doing a very, very similar job. We're all trying to move people from one house to another. So, you often hear lots of marketeers and you hear lots of organizations talk about how they differentiate their business. And certainly the way in which you position your PR proposition and the way that you talk to the market is absolutely one way in which you can differentiate your proposition. And that might be in the language that you use. It might be that you are quite a traditional style firm, or it might be that you're quite a forward-thinking firm. But I think that the key with PR is really starting to think from a position of, okay, what do we want to be known for? And how do we start to communicate that out to the market? And that's probably the starting point that I'm not completely convinced a lot of firms have really put a huge amount of thought into.
I agree. I think as an industry, actually, I think law firms are probably lacking. Again, sort of social media. If you look at other industries, I think we probably underuse it. There's not really, if you were to sort of look at, estate agents, and we spoke earlier about our friend Russell Quirk, for example, there's lots of estate agents that put themselves out there, but you don't see many property lawyers doing that, do you?
There's an element of brand to this as well, isn't there? Is sort of saying, okay, well, look, this is our identity, this is what we're about, this is our culture, and there's a huge amount of stuff wrapped up into that. But as I say, I think as purely from a PR point of view, you've got to have those sort of building blocks in place in terms of how you want to be seen, how you want to communicate to the market, and that everything sort of follows on from there, really.
Yeah, it's interesting because when I know I don't know anything about marketing in terms of the study of it, if you like. But when Stu approached me, well, in the depths of lockdown, and said, "Oh, shall we do a podcast about conveyancing to just give conveyancers some support who are all suddenly sitting in their front rooms trying to work and isolate at the same time." We decided that yes, we were going to do it, but realized really quickly, and I said to Stu, look, even if it stays just tight and it's just us and it's only ever us, which was probably always going to be the case, David, having the logo, having the name, having the website, just that little brand was actually really, really important, so that people knew about it, could recognize it. And I do think, as you say, lots of law firms don't do that. They've got some sort of terrible logos and don't do much else, and you don't know anything about the firm. They might be punting stuff out there, but you still don't know really what they're about, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, and we're talking a bit about marketing and a bit about PR here, aren't we? But lots of firms' websites talk about they may well have been established locally for an awful long time. Great, so what? There are lots of firms talk about having experienced staff. Great, so what? I remember years and years and years ago when I was writing my CV, actually, and it was an old school teacher that said to me, "You've got to apply the so what test." And ever since, that's absolutely sort of a mantra that I've carried with me in almost everything I do, to be honest, because you've got to constantly, it's not constantly sort of justifying what you're doing, but it's constantly reaffirming it. And I'm sure, Stu, you and I've talked about culture in your firm before. That's reaffirming every single day the importance of what you do as a business and your identity and all that kind of thing. So PR, an element of PR is about sort of that so what test. Why is this important? Why is this a story? And once you sort of cross that barrier, once you've got over sort of okay, this is a story we particularly want to tell, award success for the sake of argument, or the launch of a new product. Once you've got over that hurdle, then it's starting to think about, okay, how do we build into this what our identity is, what our brand is? How do we get the right voice, intonation into this, and start to communicate with the reader?
I think that's really, really important. And I just think it's the stopping and thinking that firms don't do. I mean, Stu, how do you do that process in PCS? I mean, you've got a really good online presence now. So, what thinking do you apply?
Well, I suppose from a start point, none of us had any experience in marketing, no experience in PR, and it all really started on social media, doing a few posts and kind of ramping it up from there. Now we have a marketing department where there's three people in there, where somebody that handles all our PR as well. So, it's like David said, it's getting those USPs out there. And actually, it's a cheap form of advertising. I think, in the yesteryear, we were advertising focused. Now, PR and marketing, the majority of it's online. So it all started from us from a complete standstill, cold start to where we are now. But we've learned along the way. And of course, I think with PR and marketing, it's that snowball effect as well. The more you're seen in different publications, the more that you do online, the more you get asked to do various things online, and it kind of gives you that rubber stamp of validity. You're the expert, you're the go-to person to, get a quote about a subject matter, and of course, in turn, that gives the consumer, the client, confidence.
Yeah, go
Sorry.
on, David.
I was going to say it's challenging from a trade publication point of view in today's conveyancing, clearly trade publication, because at the end of the day, one of the things that we sort of struggle with from a contributor point of view is, of course, we're not generating leads. And if you sort of think about PR as a bit of a lead generation exercise, which it certainly can be, as you say, Stu, you're not going to win any new business by coming and talking to today's conveyancer, but you'll do the second part of what you said there, Stu, which is start to position yourself as a bit of a voice of authority, an industry expert, that kind of thing. And we have quite a number of people who contribute to today's conveyancer, but I'm sure there are a lot of names that kind of appear on a more regular basis because they're quite proactive, because they have a sort of a strategy about getting their name and their content out there. So we're sort of going around the houses, pardon the pun, here a little bit, but PR serves a sort of a series of purposes. One can certainly be lead generation, and the second can certainly be brand awareness and building an identity.
I think one of the big problems law firms make is they tend to focus on that when things go quiet. I remember seeing, maybe when the rates started to go up, there was a drop off on work. I saw more and more law firms, for example, on social media, paying attention to marketing and PR. And of course, as soon as it gets busy, it tends to be the first thing that's dropped. Whereas we've always adopted the attitude, it's the best time to do more and more and more because nobody else is doing it. You've got that kind of captive market.
Well, and added to that, it's also the consistency point, isn't it?
Definitely.
And actually, when we started to do Conveyancing Matters, David, the one thing that people in the know said is you've got to be consistent. You've got to show up. You've got to get stuff out there. You've got to be consistent. And I think, to be fair to Stu and I, that's definitely something we've done with Conveyancing Matters is there or thereabouts, and to be there putting stuff out. And actually, that, as you said, that can be really, really challenging when it's really busy. And actually, certainly in the sort of dying embers of March, I was sort of doing perhaps more than I would normally do on my own because Stu was sort of under the cosh with the vast amount of work that the firm had to deal with. So, but I think that consistency is actually really important.
Massive. Absolutely huge. I mean, you look at today's Conveyancer, it's a daily news publication. We are constantly putting stuff out there. We launched a podcast. We launched the Today's Conveyancer podcast, gosh, be 3 years ago now. We've done over 100 episodes of that now. And it is by, as you say, by consistently just committing to it. And you see it all the time. You see lots of podcasts fall by the wayside because people do a handful and they sort of lose enthusiasm or they lose momentum with them. Used to be the case, not so much now, but it used to be the case that the latest news piece on a lot of law firms' websites was announcing something from 2013. you sort of no, there's definitely something more that's happened since then. People
Surely.
are an awful lot better at it now than they ever used to be. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it's a real consistency piece and really, really important.
So, well, as you say, David, we could probably sort of, rattle on about this for hours, but maybe to close, if you were suggesting to a law firm, what they might do to, if they perhaps were sort of thinking along the PR front or realizing that their output isn't very good, what are perhaps the sort of one or two pieces of sort of key advice you would give them?
There's some really practical things that I wanted to share today. So when we receive PR into the publication, first thing is we rip out the hyperbole. My goodness me, as you say, game changer. And I've lost count of the number of times I've removed that word from, and so it's really, really important, even when you submit stuff, that you're not sort of overplaying stuff. And you can, I mean, people do ham things up, and there's a sort of certain necessity around that, simply because they want to generate excitement and catch people's eye. But equally, we're all a little bit jaded by that. So I think the first piece of advice I would give is really sort of try and be really clear about what you're trying to communicate, cut down that hyperbole and cut down that sort of some of that language. Second point is make yourself, whether it's yourself that's submitting it or whether you're submitting it on behalf of a third party, make them available for comment or for picking up the phone to and having a chat. Don't sort of fire it out and cross your fingers. Really, really important. Agencies and news outlets will pick these pieces up. And generally speaking, they need to be, or certainly good ones need to be doing some level of investigation into it, just making sure that it's kind of a legitimate story and all the rest of it. So certainly really being hot around being available to speak to after you've submitted it. And the third thing is, don't be afraid to follow up. Don't be afraid to nudge and cajole. Journalists and news organizations are busy people. Certainly doesn't hurt to start building up relationships with people. And that's perhaps why today's conveyancer has started to kind of be a bit more high profile. We've invested a huge amount of time in getting out into the industry, talking to people. We've got some fantastic relationships with regulators. We were fortunate enough, very, very lucky to be invited to interview the CEO of the Law Society in the wake of the special general meeting last year. And we were the only organization that were invited to do that at the time. So, really, from our point of view, building that relationship and building that network with people is so important. And then if I can leave sort of one final kind of nugget of advice to people, is to be really, really proactive. And what I mean by that is that if you take rates changes as a news story, for example, and we're anticipating some in the coming months, aren't we? So fingers crossed. Generally speaking, as a news story, that's quite short. Rates have changed from this percentage down to this percentage. The way a news organization builds out that story is by starting to bring in commentary and by starting to bring in views and opinions. And the lifeblood of that is people proactively sending in their thoughts, opinions, some commentary pieces, 50, 100 words. Here's what John Smith thinks about this. John can be contacted here to verify it or to have a further conversation. And that's hugely important and hugely useful to organizations like today's Conveyancer.
Oh, excellent. Well, thank you for those insights, David. I mean, really, really, really interesting and practical stuff there. I think you'll agree, Stu.
Absolutely. What a great way to end.
Yeah. So thanks for joining us, David. I hope you'll come on again. It's as I say, we're kind of in a similar space, not the same space. So it's absolutely lovely to see you. And just really want to thank you very much for joining us.
Oh no, well, thank you so much for the invitation. Yeah, absolutely. And there's an open invitation to be on the Today's Conveyancer podcast as well. So we'll have to get that in the diary.
Yes, definitely. Well, you take care and we'll see you soon.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.